Hi everyone, I'm your mentor Sanjana Chauhan. As was the case in the previous video, we did discuss the first passage of CLAT 2024 English language section. And now I come to you with the next passage under the English language section, right? So let's start discussing it. Now this passage is a fictional piece, right? It's essentially talking about the protagonist and her feelings about some place, some surrounding, some environment that she has recently settled in, right? So let's start reading. Everything she wanted was here at Carignano in Casoli. So the location is essentially Casoli, right? Here on the ridge of the mountain in this quiet house. So this is all very descriptive and narrative in nature. If I were to describe the tone of this passage, it becomes narrative, right? It sounds very much like an excerpt from a novel, from a story, right? From a fictional novel. It was the place and the time of life that she had wanted and prepared for all her life, as she realized on the first day at Carignano with a great cool flowering of relief, and at last she had it. So upon a reading of this statement, we can infer that this entire setting, wherever the author is now finally started to live in, was really coveted by her, something long desired by her. And how do we know it? Because of the indicative terms here, such as, and at last she had it. This is something that she had wanted and prepared for all her life, right? Now, she wanted no one and nothing else, right? Which again has us infer that this entire setting was really coveted by her. Whatever else came or happened here would be an unwelcome intrusion. Always pay attention to the adjectives that are being used. Would be an unwelcome intrusion and distraction. Another point that we can probably infer here is that the protagonist here does not really appreciate intrusion or interference or distraction or disturbance, right? This she tried to convey. What did she try to convey? She tried to convey her unappreciation, right? Or the fact that she does not really welcome interference to the plodding postman with the cold and piercing stare, right? So the postman was met with the protagonist's cold and piercing stare, right? From the height of the ridge onto his honest bullback. Unfortunately, he did not look up at her on the hilltop, but stared stolidly. Stolidly is very emotionlessly, right? Like a rock, down in the dust, piling onto his shoes as he plodded on. A bullock man, an offish ox, she thought bitterly, right? Again, we have another adverb here. The protagonist thought bitterly about the postman. Obviously, she was not really welcoming of the intrusion, which is why she probably stared at the postman in a very cold and fierce manner, right? She stepped backwards into the garden and the wind suddenly billowed up and threw the pine branches about as though to curtain her. This again is some bit of description. The author here is essentially trying to describe the setting or the background or backdrop of the environment there, right? She was grey. Now the author also describes the protagonist here. She was grey, tall and thin, and her silk sari made a sweeping, shivering sound, and she fancied she could merge with the pine trees. Now this is in a very metaphorical manner that it is mentioned. She could merge with the pine trees and be mistaken for one. So upon a very cursory reading of the statement here, we can infer that she really wanted to be one with nature, right? She was completely immersed in the setting here. Through the words is what we can infer. To be a tree, no more and no less, was all she was prepared to undertake. She really wanted to be one with nature here. At least these are the feelings that are being described in the passage so far. All right. So later in the passage, it says, what pleased and satisfied her so here at Carignano was its barrenness, right? The fact that there was not a lot of interference, noisy environment, right? Or distraction. This was the chief virtue of all of Casoli. Of course, its darkness. It had rocks. Again, some description of the setting or the environment is given here. It had rocks, it had pines, it had light and air. In every direction, there was a sweeping view to the north of the mountains, to the south of the plains. Occasionally, an eagle swarmed through this clear, unobstructed mass of light and air. That was all. And Carignano, which is her home on the ridge, had no more than that. Why should it? Right? The sun shone on its white walls. Its windows were open, the ones facing north opened onto the blue waves of the Himalayas flowing out and up to the line of ice and snow sketched upon the sky, while those that faced south looked down the plunging cliff to the plain stretching out, flat and sere to the blurred horizon. Right? Keep in mind here now, the author is describing the place where she resides, her house, right? Now, yes, there were some apricot trees close to the house. There were clumps of iris that had finished blooming. There was the kitchen with a wing of smoke lifting out of its chimney and a stack of wood outside its door. But these were incidental or peripheral, almost unimportant. So none of this really matters here. Right now, this passage, very narrative. Essentially, the author has described the protagonist. The kind of personality that she has is something that can be inferred by the readers. Perhaps she likes isolation, she prefers solitude, and she prefers peace, right? She really admires peacefulness and the serenity of her environment of her house, which is something that she always wanted and prepared for all her life. And she does not really like any interference. And foremost and most important is, she's really at peace with the setting and she wants to be one with the nature. She really admires and adores the nature for what it is. This is all that the passage is about. Let's now discuss the questions here. The first question: what is the protagonist's preference for barrenness and starkness at Carignano suggest about her personality? Right? I think the only inference so far about the protagonist's personality is the fact that she might be possibly, or even if this is a remote inference, introverted. She appreciates isolation, loneliness. She likes to be at peace with nature without any interference or disturbance. Look at option A. She enjoys a bustling and vibrant environment. Now, this actually runs contrary to what her personality is, right? So, this is incorrect. She values simplicity and minimalism in her surroundings. Note how there are these different adjectives and adverbs used which point to this fact with 100% certainty, right? She does adore simplicity and minimalism in her surroundings. If given the chance, she really wanted to be one with nature. See, she prefers lush and colorful landscapes. Look at the wording of this option. Nowhere in the passage does it really describe the idea of her appreciating a lot of color in life. So again, we can eliminate C. D says she seeks constant stimulation and variety in her life. If that was the case, she wouldn't really prefer the nature or, the setting of Kasauli for all its barrenness, right? Because if she really wanted variety, she wouldn't really appreciate the starkness, the barrenness of the setting where she is residing. So this again is quite opposite the idea that is being discussed. The correct option here will be B. Take a look at the next question now. What do you get to know about the protagonist's state of mind from her reaction towards the postman? Of course, the postman, it's mentioned in the passage, was met by the protagonist's very cold and piercing stare, which was very much indicative of how she did not really like the fact that she had to see the postman, spot the postman, right? She did not really appreciate intrusion, right? Look at it. She feels grateful for his presence and the assistance he offers. Again, we can clearly eliminate this. B. She dislikes any disturbance or interruption in her solitude. Just what is given, just what can be inferred from the passage. B here is the correct option. C says she feels suspicious and is interested in the lives of the others. Well, a lot of students might feel that given the background and given the setting of the plot, she might feel suspicious. But again, we cannot really infer this from the passage except for some adjectives that just tell us that she did not really appreciate the intrusion here, right? And is interested in the lives of others. This makes the entire option invalidated. Note the part where I did mention, whenever an option and a part of it is incorrect, then the entire option becomes incorrect, right? And therefore, this is incorrect. D. She is disinterested and generally unaffected by the presence of others. She obviously did get affected by the presence of the postman, which is why he was met with a cold and piercing stare, right? And to say that she is unaffected by the presence of others, if that were the case, perhaps the part that mentions, about the plodding postman was not really required, right? So D is incorrect. Correct option for this question will be B, that she did not like any disturbance or interruption in her solitude. Take a look at the next question now. What does a protagonist's desire to be mistaken for a pine tree reveal about a mindset? Note how I did infer through those lines where she really wanted to merge with the pine trees and disappear in the background. Leads us to infer that she perhaps wanted to be one with nature. Look at the options now. A. She desires to be appreciated and noticed by others in society. Her desire to be seen, to be spotted by others is not something that can be at all inferred from the passage. So we can infer this. She has a deep admiration for the beauty of the pine trees. So far, we cannot just outrightly eliminate B, because obviously she does adore the beauty of the pine trees. She does adore the beauty of the nature. So whenever you feel that there's a certain option you might deem may be correct, take a pause and perhaps try to exhaust the rest of the options. See, she feels a sense of superiority over other living beings. Can we eliminate this? Yes, because superior attitude, inferior attitude again on her part is not discussed. D says, she yearns to be one with nature and escape from her human identity. This is just what my inference was, right? A correct reading will most likely and most often, right, for the most part, lead you to arrive at the correct option. D here is a correct option. Any day you can prefer D over B. B, even though can be remotely inferred from the passage, but this does not really reveal much about her mindset per se. It does not really address the question here, right? Whatever the question is asking. And therefore, the correct option here will be D for Delhi, right? Take a look at the next question. The protagonist's description of the nestling scream as shrill and maddening shows that. First things first, students keep in mind that this question was withdrawn by the CLAT consortium. And that's because the nestling screams, when you notice this part here, the nestling screams are shrill and maddening. This statement is not mentioned in the passage. And without context, it's not really wise to just infer something. This question was withdrawn from the passage, all right? So I'll be skipping the discussion for this. Look at 11th. Which of the following statements are true about the protagonist's overall state of mind in Carignano? Simply just start looking at the statements given under it. Statement 1. She experienced a sense of constant restlessness and anguish. Of course, in the passage it says that she was at peace. She really appreciated her solitude. So this is very much incorrect about her state of mind. Statement 2. She felt isolated and disconnected from her environment. She really felt at peace with the nature. Now, terming it as her feeling isolation or her going through this feeling of isolation will be a little too extreme for us to infer. She felt isolated and disconnected from her environment. Again, keep in mind how she really felt connected with nature, something she really coveted. So we can eliminate statement 2. If that is the case, obviously option A is out, obviously option B is out, and option C is out as well. By default, the correct option is D, but obviously it's only imperative that we look at what option 3, statement 3 here tells us. She was content. Yes, she was very satisfied, satiated. She was fulfilled and at peace with the surroundings. Just notice how my inference is pretty much in tandem with the options here as well, right? So the correct option here will be option D. Only statement 3 can be inferred about the protagonist's state of mind in Carignano, right? Look at the next question now. In the light of the above passage, what role does nature play in the protagonist's life at Carignano? It would be very smart of us to just look at the options here first thing, and let's try to eliminate the bad options. A. It provides her with a source of creativity. Perhaps to say that it does provide her with a source of creativity requires a passage to give more inputs about, inspiration, creation, right, being artsy, because this is very broadly worded. And in fact, the passage does not mention anything about creativity, right, that is sparked in her by the nature. So we can eliminate A. B says it offers a solace, peace, and a sense of belonging. This is very much in alignment with what the passage tells us. She adores nature for the kind of solitude it provides to her, for the sense of peace, solace, and belonging it provides to her. She feels very connected with the nature, right? So B is the correct option here. C says it serves as a reminder of the harsh realities of life, Again, harsh realities is not mentioned in the passage, we can eliminate it. B says it serves as a constant source of distraction and intrusion for her. On the other hand, nature actually makes her feel very connected and she just admires it all the more because it brings her a lot of peace and there is no intrusion, no interference, no disturbance whatsoever. So again, they is very much incorrect, running contrary to the idea mentioned. The correct option for this question will be option B, right? So yes, that's about the second passage for CLAT 2024 English language. I hope you've understood the pointers I've discussed. I hope you like it. Stay tuned for the rest of the passages that will be discussed in the subsequent videos.